I'm going to start off this video by saying that I really like the new Skullcandy Hesh ANCs, and I am really excited about the future of Skullcandy, because Skullcandy just put out two bangers back to back. A few weeks ago, we checked out the new Skullcandy Crusher Evos, and I think these are a great pair of secondary bass head headphones. And the Hesh ANCs have a very impressive active noise cancellation and ambient mode for a pair of entry-level headphones. Now, the Hesh ANC retail for $130, and quite frankly, these headphones really do give other entry-level ANC headphones like the Sennheiser HD450BT and Sony Watcha 710N a real run for their money. Now, that's going to be a separate video on its own, but something that I will say right now is that I vastly prefer the Hesh ANC over the Skullcandy Venue, which retail for $180. And plainly said, I've never really liked these headphones, but the Hesh ANC is a completely different story. So if you want to pick these headphones up, they'll be linked down below. Now, first off, let's talk about the included accessories. Now, the Hesh ANC comes included with a carrying pouch, so if you do plan on traveling a lot with these headphones, I would recommend that you invest in a hard shell carrying case. However, something that my business brain would like to quickly point out is that both the Hesh ANC and Crusher Evos, which were released in Q4 of 2020, come included with carrying pouches, whereas the Venues, which were released in Q4 of 2018, come with a hard shell carrying case. Now, even though it's nice that the Venues come included with a hard case, it looks like Skullcandy is cutting on costs on their case and reallocating that budget to improving the build quality of their headphones, which is perfectly fine with me. Because when it comes to build quality, the Hesh ANC are very impressive and they are much better built than the Venues. Now, the Hesh ANCs are mostly made out of plastic, but they do feel more premium, specifically because they have different touch surfaces. Their ear cups have a slight soft touch finish to them, their arms are glossy, and their headband has a slightly slate finish to it. There's also a decent amount of padding underneath this headband, and overall, the leatherette on these headphones feels good for a pair of entry-level headphones. Now, this leatherette doesn't feel as good as the leatherette found on the Crusher Evos, but for a pair of entry-level headphones, there are no complaints from me. But the most important thing about the Hesh ANC is that when you handle or flex these headphones, there's zero cracking or squeaking. Whereas with the Venues, whenever you handle these headphones, these do like to crack and squeak a lot. So overall, I think the Hesh ANC are a solid pair of headphones and they feel much better than the Venues. Now, when it comes to comfort, overall, these are a pair of good fitting headphones. But let me be the first one to tell you that you need to give these headphones a good stretch when you first get them. Because right out of the box, these headphones do fit very tight. But after a good stretch, the clamping force on these headphones isn't bad and they are big head approved. Now, one very important thing that I do want to point out about these headphones is, thankfully, the padding underneath this headband is soft and it doesn't create a hot spot on the top of your head, like the padding on the Crusher Evos. Also, combined with the fact that these headphones are super lightweight, weighing in at 225 grams, you can easily wear these headphones for hours on end, you barely notice them when you're walking around with them on, and you do forget that you have them on after a while. However, when it comes to their padding, even though I can make them work with my ears, the padding on the Hesh ANC can be a little cramped. Now, these ear pads are more spacious than the ones found on the Venue, which is great, but they aren't as spacious as the ones found on the Crusher Evo. So if you do have larger ears or ears that stick out a lot, then you might want to go with something like the Sony Watcha 710N. So overall, the Hesh ANCs are a pair of decent fitting headphones. They're big head approved, they're super lightweight, their headband doesn't create a hot spot on the top of your head like the Crusher Evos, and their ear pads don't overheat. However, their ear pads are a little on the cramped side, so they aren't the best for people who have larger ears or ears that stick out a lot. But now let's talk about tech specs. Now, the Hesh ANCs charge via a USB-C port, which is a major upgrade from the Venues, which still charge via a micro USB port. And when it comes to battery life, these headphones ain't half bad. They have an advertised battery life of 22 hours with their active noise cancellation turned on, but if you were to use them with their active noise cancellation turned off, then they have an advertised battery life of 30 hours. But these headphones also have decent fast charging, where if you were to charge them up for 10 minutes from a dead battery, they're going to get you 3 hours of playback time. Now, when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, these headphones are using Bluetooth 5.0, but they can only be connected to one device at a time, meaning that you can't easily hot swap from one device to another, which could be a drawback for some power users out there. Now, ultimately, it's not a huge deal if your headphones have simultaneous multi-device connectivity, but it is nice to have. But more importantly, when it comes to watching movies or videos on your phone, these headphones have zero latency across the board, whether you're using an iPhone or an Android device, which is always great. And these headphones also have support for higher quality audio codecs like AAC. But if you want to, you can still just use a wired connection with these headphones, because these headphones still have an easy to reach 3.5mm audio jack. Now, I know this sounds basic, but I really do want to put it out here because a lot of headphones in this price range have started to remove their audio jacks. Sennheiser did it with their HD 350BTs, which are very similarly priced to these. But now let's talk about listening to music with these headphones. Now, as with any other pair of Skullcandy headphones, the Hesh ANC have a bass-heavy sound signature, which is a lot of fun to listen to. However, these headphones sound very different when they have their active noise cancellation turned on versus when they have their ANC turned off. Now, if you want to get the best sound quality out of these headphones, you gotta use them with their ANC turned off. With their ANC turned off, they are going to sound way more open, and their bass is also going to hit a lot harder and physically rattle your head. Now, overall, with their ANC turned off, these headphones sound good. They have strong mids with hard-hitting bass that doesn't bottom out, which I feel is very important to point out, because the bass on the venues does like to bottom out quite a bit and start sputtering. My only critique about the sound signature of these headphones is that their highs are a little too pronounced, so they can get a little ear-piercing in certain situations. And unfortunately, the Hesh ANC don't connect to Skullcandy's app, so you can't directly adjust their EQ. And I really do think that's a shame, because I really want to lower the mids a bit on these headphones. But overall, the Hesh ANC are a pair of very fun bass-heavy headphones to listen to, which do rattle your head a fair amount. But now let's talk about the active noise cancellation on these headphones. Like I mentioned earlier, if you want to get the best sound out of these headphones, you gotta use them with their ANC turned off, because with their ANC turned on, they do get narrowed up quite a bit, and their bass won't hit as hard. So for that reason, I only use their ANC when I have to. But besides that, their active noise cancellation is very impressive. It doesn't have a lot of cabin pressure, and it blocks out an impressive amount of noise. But so that you can see for yourself, we're going to jump into an ANC test. So, like you may have just seen, the entry-level Hesh ANC clearly blocks out more road noise and chatter than the mid-tier Sony XP900N. But the Hesh ANC does have a little more cabin pressure than the XP900N, and their ANC really does affect how their music sounds. Whereas the ANC on the XP900N doesn't really change how its music sounds. Now, even though the Hesh ANC blocks out a good amount of noise, it doesn't block out nearly as much noise as a pair of premium ANC headphones, like the Sony 1000 XM4s, and that's to be expected. But nonetheless, I am impressed by the ANC on the Hesh ANC, because it does have less cabin pressure than the Skullcandy Venue, and its microphone array does a much better job of blocking out wind noise when walking outdoors than both the Venues and the Skullcandy Crusher ANC. And the microphone array on the Hesh ANC also does a great job of blocking out wind noise when walking outdoors when you're using their ambient mode. And overall, the ambient mode on the Hesh ANC sounds great as well. It sounds very natural with zero hissing in the background. Because for comparison's sake, the ambient mode on the Crusher ANCs has a lot of hissing in the background, which can be very distracting when you're watching movies or videos at home. And the ambient mode on the Crusher ANCs picks up a lot of wind noise when walking outdoors. And again, for comparison's sake, another reason why I like the Hesh ANC so much better over the Venues is because with the Hesh ANCs, you can have their ambient mode turned on and play music normally, which is great either for commuting or watching movies at home. Whereas with the Venues, they don't have an actual ambient mode. They have a monitoring mode, where if you press this button, they'll lower the volume of your music and pump in all of the ambient sound around you, so that you can talk to someone without having to take your headphones off, like this. But if you try to raise the volume of your music, it won't go up. So ultimately, the ambient mode on the Hesh ANC is way more useful than the monitoring mode on the Venues. And, like I mentioned earlier, the ambient mode on the Hesh ANC sounds way better than the ambient mode on the Crusher ANC. Now, before we jump into the microphone test, I do want to quickly point out that the Hesh ANC also have tile support just like the Crusher ANC, Venue, and even the Crusher Evo. Now, personally, I am indifferent about tile support on these headphones. Personally, I would prefer that these headphones could connect to Skullcandy's app so that you can adjust your EQ, but tile support is there if you want it. But finally, here's a microphone test. And overall, I gotta say that the microphone on the Hesh ANC sounds pretty good. Now, I might sound a little far away, but other than that, the microphone on these headphones is definitely usable for a phone call, and the microphone on these headphones sounds much better than the microphone found on the Skullcandy Venue. Because for comparison's sake, the microphone found on the Skullcandy Venue sounds very robotic. So yeah, the microphone on the Hesh ANC sounds much better than the microphone found on the Skullcandy Venue. But with all that being said, personally, I really like the Hesh ANC, and they have me really excited about the future of Skullcandy. From a build quality standpoint, the Hesh ANC are a pair of very well built headphones that fit good, albeit they might not be the best for someone with larger ears or ears that stick out a lot. These headphones have a very fun bass heavy sound signature, and they are going to rattle your head a good amount. Personally, I just wish we could dial the highs back a little bit. And keep in mind, if you want to get the best sound out of these headphones, you gotta use them with their ANC turned off. But the biggest thing that has me excited about these headphones is their active noise cancellation and ambient mode. The Hesh ANC managed to block out an impressive amount of noise for a pair of entry-level headphones. And the ambient mode on these headphones is miles better than the ambient mode found on the more premium Skullcandy Crusher ANC. So overall, if you're looking for a pair of entry-level headphones, the Hesh ANC are a solid pickup. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. If you want to pick any of the products up mentioned in this video, those will be linked in the description down below, and you can also support the channel by checking out the merch store. But other than that, I'll catch you next time.